Now, Covington Catholic is firing back. At least the kid who was accused, Nick Sandmann. He's hired a well-known attorney by the name of Lin Wood. Lin Wood also represented, it was Richard Jewell and the 1996 Atlanta Olympic bombing. I just wanted to, they put together a 15-minute clip that involves a lot of the material that happened prior to the Native American drum, etc., which ran on for about an hour, I do believe. So the clip is out. They've got words in the bottom of the screen. This is part of how they're making their public case now.
This is a bunch of future school shooters.
How you gonna tell somebody to go to shoot up a school? That's like really rude, bro. That's racist,
North
bro.
American, when you get old enough, they're gonna steal your organs.
Whoa, hey,
why you being mean?
Hey, we love you, kid.
Hey, we love you.
Mr. Phillips began moving to his right, down a line of boys, eventually stopping face to face with Nick Sandmann. The young man remained where he had already been standing, placing his undivided attention on Mr. Phillips, who never once tried to move beyond him.
It goes on from there, and they have filed suit now or put a number of defendants on notice. I think 51 total list now. News organizations, individual news personalities, CNN, NBC, MSNBC, Washington Post, CBS, Elizabeth Warren, Ilhan Omar, the newly elected member of Congress from Michigan, Kathy Griffin, Jim Carrey. It's a long, long list. Leslie, you wrote a piece at foxnews.com after this story first erupted and then started to die down a little bit. And you wrote this. You said, Covington students are still kids. Why did so many adults ignore that in the rush to condemn them? End quote.
Yes. But whether it's a lawsuit for libel that's going to be victorious, I wouldn't say, and I'll tell you why. Opinion is is protected by free speech, by the First Amendment. Secondly, if you put out there misinformation and then you come back and you correct that information, there's no longer libel, there's no longer slander, and in addition, what was the damage done by the defamation to the individual? So legally, those are the boxes that would have to be checked 100% in order for these 51 cases to be ruled in the Covington students' favor.
You Google his name, that high school student's name, and the reaction that he received lives on.
There's no question his reputation is stained, and while Leslie's right, there might not be legal remedies. I think he has every right to fight back. I think many Democrats and some in the media used this young man as a vessel for their hatred, whether it's President Trump or Republicans. I think he has every right to restore his reputation. I'm not a lawyer, but I think it's positive that they're taking some proactive steps to do just that.
Lin Wood, I mentioned the attorney. Part of his statement reads the following: as we analyze the mountain of false publications of action and statements about Nick, we'll be looking at causes of action behind defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress, including actions based on cyberbullying and assault.
Yeah. You know, I think that the point about whether this is all actionable is a good one. There's a defense in defamation that's against something called mere vulgar abuse. And a lot of what this boy, whose reputation clearly has been stained, was subjected to was vulgar abuse by Hollywood people, by some journalists, etc. The actionable stuff would be against those news organizations, perhaps like the Washington Post, who just put out what has now been proven to be an absolutely false story based on Nathan Phillips' dishonest account.